A free film series is happening at Lexington's Living Arts and Science Center, and one of those free screenings is happening tonight.
Annie Brown joins us live now with details on tonight's big event. Annie, good morning.
Yeli and Haley, good morning. You're finding me here at the Glow Gallery. Tonight, the first film in a series of films is screening. It's called Home from School. I'm here with the film's director, Jeffrey O'Gara. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's about. So let's first start off with that.
Let's start with I'm glad to be here in Kentucky, which I used to work in ages ago in journalism. What's it about? It's about Native Americans from Wyoming, from the Wind River Reservation, who historically had a lot of children taken from the reservation and from their families and put in boarding schools far away, where they were stripped of all their traditional clothing, their hair was cut, they were forced to speak only English, none of their native language, in an attempt to kind of assimilate them into the new dominant society. And we're talking about in the 19th century. Some of them died, European diseases, things they'd never been exposed to, and they were buried at these boarding schools far from home. Now, today, Native American tribes are attempting to go back in some cases and find the remains of those children and bring them to be reburied with their ancestors. Sounds like kind of a sad task to pursue, but in fact, it's a real healing process for tribes to go and do this, to find those children, bring them home, and rebury them at the reservation. That's our story. That's what the documentary is about.
Now, Jeffrey, what made you want to tell this story?
Well, I'd been living in Wyoming for decades, for a long time as a journalist, and I'd covered the Wind River Reservation, the Northern Arapaho and the Eastern Shoshone tribes that lived there, knew a lot of the families, knew them quite well. And when this began to develop, they had been trying for generations to bring these children home with no success. The facility where they'd been in school is now an Army facility, U.S. Army. There's been resistance to it. Suddenly they had a breakthrough in 2017 where the Army said, we're willing to let you take those children back, but it's going to take some process. So elders and youth, they put together a delegation of Northern Arapaho who went to the Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania to retrieve the remains of 3 of these children. And we happened to be there because we knew the families involved. I brought a crew. I'd worked at PBS in Wyoming for years, and we basically they allowed us to film the story as it unfolded.
Well, that's fascinating. And lastly, what is one takeaway that you'd want someone to get from this film?
You know, I think 2 things. One is that a lot of us have Native Americans in a kind of mythological form. We think of them as cowboys and Indians and that sort of thing. These are people living in this century with us. They are our neighbors. Getting to know them as real people, that's really important. The second thing would be history. History is always a process of revision. We're always learning new things, getting new perspectives. That's what we're doing here. This is left out of the history books, the story of the boarding schools. It affected enormous numbers of young children, and it has affected generations since. So that's a story that needs to be told.
All right, well, Jeffrey, thank you. That's happening at 6:30. There's a Q&A, so you can pick his brain more about that coming up tonight. For now, we're live in Lexington. Annie Brown, back to you guys.